I stood in the back corner of the glass elevator, wedged between two guys in slick $1,000 suits who smelled like money and self-importance. They didn't notice me. They never did. And that was fine. I wasn't there for small talk. I was there for the kill. My name's Ryan. I'm 32. I live in Stamford, Connecticut. Today I was riding to the top of Ellis Stratton Holdings, floor 55, while my brother Carter got ready to take a victory lap in front of our entire family. He was about to be named Vice President of Acquisitions. Big job, big money. Our parents were already in the audience, probably sitting in the front row, proud as hell. My mom had probably been bragging about him all morning. My dad? He'd be nodding along like Carter invented capitalism. Me? I was the quiet one. That's what they always called me. Said I didn't have the hunger. I didn't argue. I didn't push. I just listened, watched, waited. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The guy next to me adjusted his cufflinks like he wanted someone to notice his Rolex. I glanced down at my own jacket, clearance rack from last year. Still had the fold lines in the sleeves, but that didn't matter. I wasn't there to impress anyone. Carter told me not to come, actually said, "Don't show up and make it weird," as if I'd somehow ruin his big day by existing. Typical Carter move, always managing the image. He had no idea what I'd been up to. No clue I'd spent the last 2 years building something bigger than any title he'd ever hold. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding. I stepped out into the penthouse lobby, where crystal lights and polished floors screamed wealth. Everyone was dressed for the cameras, catered finger food, champagne already flowing. All for Carter, all for the golden sun. No one looked twice at me, and that was the point. What they didn't know, what Carter never even considered, was that while he was climbing the front steps, smiling for every damn photo op, I was working behind the scenes, quietly, precisely, buying into the very company he thought he was running toward. Ellis Stratton's 3 largest holdings. I had silent stakes in all of them. Today he thought he was getting promoted. He was about to get blindsided. The last time I sat at that ugly oak dinner table in my parents' house, it was a Sunday night, like always. Roast beef, overcooked green beans, Carter running his mouth. Same setup, different day. He held his wine glass like he was presenting to shareholders instead of family. "I'm just saying, not everyone's built for high-level work," he said, looking straight at me with that smug half-smile. "Some people need to stay in their lane." My dad laughed. "Well, Carter's not wrong." Mom reached over and touched Carter's arm like he just won a damn medal. "We're just proud you're going somewhere," she said. "All those hours, all that drive, it's finally paying off." They didn't even try to hide it. Carter was the one they pinned their dreams on. Always had been. I was just the kid who liked computers and worked too quietly for them to understand. Carter leaned back in his chair. "And Ryan, how's the old consulting gig going? Still playing dress-up in that shared office space in Norwalk?" I didn't answer right away. Just kept chewing, calm, controlled. He loved a reaction. I wasn't giving him one. He pushed on. "You know, man, you should have come work with me when you had the chance. You could have been on a real team by now instead of running some freelance hustle no one's ever heard of." I looked up and smiled, just enough to make him wonder. "It's going just fine," I said. That was all. He smirked. All right, don't get sensitive. I'm just trying to help you think long-term. One day you're gonna wish you built a real career." Mom jumped in, nodding. "You're smart, honey, but you've got to be more aggressive. Carter's got the edge because he knows how to push." Dad added, "It's about making moves. Carter makes moves. That's why he's getting promoted. You got to stop playing it safe." They kept going like I wasn't even sitting there, like I was some intern who hadn't earned the right to speak. What none of them knew was that 3 days before, I'd finalized silent stake agreements with Ellis Stratton's top 3 competitors. The first moves in a plan that would eventually give me control over Ellis Stratton itself. I was holding real paper, not some fake title. Actual power, the kind you don't brag about at dinner. I'd already had my second call with Meredith Yu's office. Her assistant blocked off the following Thursday for an in-person. I didn't need my parents to believe in me. I didn't need Carter to take me seriously. I just needed to keep my mouth shut a little longer. I reached for my water glass, took a sip, and stood up. "Thanks for dinner," I said. Mom blinked. "You're leaving already? Dessert's in the fridge." "Got some early meetings tomorrow," I told her. Carter raised his eyebrows. "With who? A startup in a strip mall?" I didn't bother answering. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and walked to the front door. "Ryan," Dad called out, "don't be so sensitive. We're just trying to motivate you." I looked back over my shoulder. I'm plenty motivated. And I was. Because while they sat around that table handing out praise to the one who talked the loudest, I was done waiting to be seen. I'd built my leverage in silence, piece by piece, deal by deal. That was the last night they ever spoke to me like I was small. I moved through the crowd like wallpaper, unnoticed, unimportant, just like Carter preferred. The top floor of Ellis Stratton Holdings looked like a luxury hotel ballroom. Champagne fountains, branded ice sculptures, and a live quartet tucked into the corner like it was a damn wedding. Everything screamed celebration. Carter was in the center of it all, holding court in a navy suit probably worth more than my first car. Shaking hands, throwing back fake laughs, gripping shoulders like a politician. Our parents stood off to the side, beaming, Mom in her pearls, Dad in a suit he only wore for Carter's events. I stuck to the back of the room, just like he told me. Only difference? This time I brought a briefcase. Inside it was the final documentation. Transfer of voting control, board consolidation, and the legal trail of my acquisition plays. Took me 21 months to stack the position, one silent investment at a time, all legal, all clean, all mine. A man tapped the mic on stage, and the chatter died down. Then came Meredith Yu, CEO of Ellis Stratton, 45, built like a blade. She didn't waste time with small talk. She already knew what was coming. We'd met privately a week earlier to review the documents. She'd seen the numbers. "Today is about legacy," she said, "about rewarding vision, not just performance, but patience, timing, strategy." Carter straightened his tie and took a deep breath like he'd already practiced his acceptance speech in the mirror that morning. Meredith continued. One individual saw the storm before the clouds even formed. While others looked for applause, this person studied patterns and made the right moves when no one was watching. I saw Carter's jaw tighten. He knew it was coming. At least, he thought he did. "Today," Meredith said, "we're not just promoting a new executive. We're recognizing the new majority shareholder of Ellis Stratton Holdings." That's when Carter stepped forward. He actually stepped forward, grinned at the crowd, adjusted his watch, reached out like he was ready to accept the mic. Meredith didn't even look at him. Instead, she turned to the back of the room. "Ryan Stratton, acting CEO, effective immediately." Silence, like someone cut the audio on a live broadcast. Carter froze, arm halfway out. His mouth didn't move, didn't blink. I walked forward. I didn't rush, no need. Every step I took sounded louder than it should have, like the floor was announcing it too. People parted without a word. Mom clutched her purse tighter. Dad's eyes followed me, like he didn't recognize my face. Carter's lips were moving, but no sound came out. His whole body locked up. Meredith handed me the mic. I set the briefcase on the podium, clicked it open, and laid the papers flat like I was starting a routine meeting. I looked around the room. Most people wouldn't meet my eye. Some looked confused. A few looked terrified. "Let's get started," I said. That was it. I didn't smile. I didn't explain. I didn't look at Carter. The boardroom glass behind me caught the city lights, the whole skyline glowing behind the stage. The Ellis Stratton logo spun slowly on the screens around us. Nobody clapped. Nobody moved. Carter finally turned to our parents. "Is this a joke?" he whispered, just loud enough for the front row to hear. "What the hell is this?" Dad shook his head slowly. Mom looked like she might throw up. I didn't wait for them to process it. I picked up the mic again. "To our team, we'll be having department meetings this week. Strategy briefs will go out by morning. Until then, enjoy the night." Meredith nodded once. The CFO looked like he'd seen a ghost. The general counsel was already flipping through the paperwork in my briefcase, looking for loopholes he wouldn't find. Carter stepped toward the podium, but I blocked him with a look. "Don't," I said. "Not here." He stopped. I turned away from him and walked straight through the crowd to the hallway behind the stage. People moved like I had security around me, even though I didn't. I didn't need it. Not anymore. I had just closed the door to my new office when it burst open like a kicked-in cop raid. Carter came flying in first, eyes wild, face flushed. Mom and Dad were right behind him, like backup singers who didn't know the lyrics. "What the hell was that?" Carter snapped, jabbing a finger toward the hallway. You think you can just steal my career and walk away like some big shot? I didn't even flinch. I took my time setting the briefcase down behind the desk and flipped open the top drawer to grab the transition folder I'd prepared last week. You want to sit down? I asked. Don't patronize me, Ryan. Mom stepped between us, clutching her purse like a peace offering. Honey, just explain, please. This doesn't make sense. You're not the corporate type. Dad stayed standing, arms folded. His mouth was a flat line, but his eyes were lit like a fuse. I nodded slowly. I built a consulting firm over the past 6 years, started small, focused on early-stage tech clients. I reinvested everything, every invoice, every bonus, every contract. No vacations, no new cars, just long-term plays, quiet ones. Carter laughed once. You, investing. I tossed the folder onto the desk. I put my money into strategic acquisitions across firms Ellis Stratton depended on to stay afloat. Mergers, supplier networks, logistics. I watched Carter's department from the outside and mapped its weak points. Dad slammed his palm down on the desk so hard my pen holder shook. You went behind your own brother's back? You planned this? I didn't plan to take anything from Carter, I said. I planned to protect the company from what he was doing. Carter's mouth dropped open. What the hell are you talking about? Cutting side deals with vendors for kickbacks, stalling acquisitions so your friends could buy in early, shuffling money between shells. I've been watching. Mom shook her head. No, Ryan, don't turn this into an attack. Carter's worked so hard. I'm not attacking, I said. I'm correcting. She stepped forward. Please don't do this. Don't humiliate him. He can change. I'm not interested in humiliation, I said, but he's not staying here. Carter charged toward the desk. You're not kicking me out of the company I built. You're being reassigned, I said flatly. Regional manager, Omaha office, title stays, salary too. But you're done with acquisitions, done with corporate. You'll handle operations in the Midwest. You can't do that. I already did. Board approved it last week. He looked to Dad for backup. Dad didn't disappoint. This is betrayal, Ryan, pure and simple. No, I said. What's betrayal is watching him gut deals and lie to your faces while you pat him on the back. Mom started crying. Please, just give him another chance. Talk to him. This is too far. It's already done. Carter's fists clenched. I'll sue. I leaned forward. Try it. The paper trail's clean. Every transfer, every board vote. You'll burn what little credibility you have left. The silence was heavy. Mom wiped her eyes. Dad stared at me like I'd just stabbed him. I picked up the folder again, walked it around the desk, and handed it to Carter. Flight info, housing, support staff roster. You start Monday, or you don't, but you're not staying here. He didn't take it, just stood there, breathing hard. Pick one, I said. Carter didn't say another word, just turned and walked out of my office with our parents trailing behind him. Mom crying into her sleeve, Dad still shaking his head like I was the one who blew it. The door slammed behind them, and that was that. I didn't wait for the dust to settle. First week, I pulled full performance logs across every division. Not the highlight reels, the real stuff. The after-hours work, the late deliveries that got saved last minute, the projects that didn't fail because someone no one noticed stepped in and fixed it. That's how I found Elise Harris. She'd been buried 3 layers deep in acquisitions, working under Carter for 3 years. She handled every major proposal in his department, ran the analytics, coordinated the teams, even wrote the summary decks. But Carter put his name on everything before sending it upstairs. Her record was spotless. Her email logs told the story loud and clear. So I called her in. You're taking over Carter's old team, I told her, effective immediately. She blinked. Excuse me? You've been doing the job already. Now you'll have the authority to match. She looked like she didn't know whether to thank me or throw up. I didn't think anyone even noticed. I did. I gave her an office on the same floor as mine and a seat at senior leadership. Not a token role, real input, real power. The rest followed fast. I removed Carter's circle piece by piece. No drama, no HR headlines, just quiet exits and clean transitions. Replaced them with people who actually worked. No favors, no politics, just competence. Whispers started circulating by the end of the second week. People noticed the tone shift. Meetings got shorter. Goals got clearer. Deadlines got met. Then came the change I didn't plan for. Morale. You could feel it in the halls. People walked straighter, smiled more. They weren't scared. They weren't stuck under Carter's boys' club of back-scratching and empty promises. A guy from accounting came up to me in the break room one morning and said, "Thanks for noticing the people who actually give a damn." That hit harder than anything the board ever said. Carter left without saying goodbye. I only knew he was gone because HR sent me the email confirming his relocation package. He took the Omaha Post. I heard from one of the assistants he was already behind on 3 audits and blaming the local staff. Didn't surprise me. A few outlets started calling me the quiet investor who outplayed the board. Some puff piece writer tried to brand me as the shadow CEO. I didn't return their emails. I wasn't here for a legacy piece or some LinkedIn glory parade. I was here to fix what got ignored for too long. I kept the same office, same coffee mug, no new car, no flashy announcement. The only difference now, people listened when I spoke. 3 months later, my assistant buzzed my office. "Your parents are downstairs, no appointment. Should I tell them to come back?" I didn't answer right away. "Send them up," I said. When the elevator doors opened, I almost didn't recognize them. Dad's shoulders looked smaller, like someone had deflated him. His hair was more gray than black now. Mom was wearing the same coat she'd worn 2 winters ago, the seams frayed at the sleeves. They walked in slow, like they weren't sure they belonged here. "Ryan," Mom said first. Her voice cracked halfway through my name. Dad stayed quiet, eyes on the floor. I leaned back in my chair. "What's going on?" Mom sat down. "It's about Carter." Of course it was. "He's been calling, said things in Omaha aren't working out. He asked us for help." "How much?" Dad finally looked up. "He needs a loan, temporary, just until he gets caught up." I didn't answer. I pulled open the drawer on my left and slid out the folder I'd put together 2 weeks earlier, the one labeled Parents, Transfers. I opened it and flipped through the pages. "You already gave him over $200,000 in the last 5 years. Mom's eyes widened. "How do you—" "Bank records. I pulled them after I found out you co-signed that commercial lease for his friend's fake startup." Dad's mouth tightened. "That's our business?" "No, it became mine when you risked your house to keep him propped up." They both froze. "You think I wouldn't find out about the second mortgage, the equity pull? You put your retirement on the line for a guy who still thinks emails are optional." Mom's voice dropped. "He said it was temporary, that it was turning around." "It's not." "He's your brother," she snapped. "No, he's your project. I stopped being his safety net years ago." Dad leaned forward, jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "I understand just fine," I cut in. "You let him sell you the same lie for a decade because you'd rather believe in a fantasy than admit you backed the wrong horse." Mom started to cry. Not loud, just soft, steady. The kind of cry that runs out of energy before it even starts. Dad just sat there, fists clenched, nothing left to argue with. I stood up, walked to the window, then turned back around. "I'll buy the house, full market value. You can keep living in it. I'll write up a lease, charge you half of what the mortgage costs now. You'll have security." Mom looked up, hope flashing for a second. "You'd do that?" "With one condition," I said. "You sign acknowledgement paperwork, all of it, every dollar sent, every signature, everything you did to keep him afloat." Dad's face went cold. "You want us to humiliate ourselves?" "No," I said. "I want the truth on paper. You're not bailing him out with my help unless we stop pretending this was anything but blind loyalty and bad decisions." "And the counseling?" Mom asked. "Mandatory, financial literacy, debt management, the works. I'll pay for it, but you have to go." They looked at each other, not arguing, just tired. After a long pause, Mom nodded. Dad didn't say anything. He just leaned back and closed his eyes. 2 mornings after my parents left the office, I got a message from Omaha. It came from Carter's assistant. Well, the one the board stuck with him after I cleaned house. Her email was short. Carter broke down during a staff meeting, said, "I don't know what I'm doing," locked himself in his office for an hour. I wasn't shocked. He'd built his whole career on other people doing the hard parts. Take that away, and he was just a guy with a shiny resume and 0 tools. What he didn't know was that I'd already prepared for this exact moment. Weeks earlier, I brought in a business ethics coach, neutral, certified, strictly there for structural repair. Not for Carter, but for the office itself, for the employees he was dragging down. I'd also arranged a systems audit and a shadow team to help steer operations without making it obvious. I didn't send a message back. No pep talk, no check-in. He didn't need me to save him. He needed to sit in the mess long enough to understand it. He never thanked me. Not for the job, not for keeping him out of legal hell, not for buying our parents time. But that was fine. I didn't need his gratitude. I just needed him out of the way. Back in HQ, things were finally humming. That afternoon, Elise came into my office with a binder and a tired smile. "Progress report," she said. "Want the good news or the good news?" Hit me. "Revenues are up 8%. Turnover dropped by half. We've got 12 clients back on retainer, including Pinnacle. They called us." I let out a low whistle. Pinnacle came to us. "Direct call to the front desk," she said. Asked if the new leadership was permanent. "Tell them yes," I said. She laughed. "Already did." She turned to leave, and I stopped her. "Wait." I reached into my drawer and pulled out the envelope I'd stashed earlier that morning, handed it to her across the desk. She opened it and blinked. This is a real raise. You earned it. Also, your name's on the reserve spot in the garage. Start using it." She stared at me for a second. "You know, most people just throw a pizza party and call it appreciation, right? I'm not most people." She gave me a nod and walked out without another word, just a smile. The building emptied out by 7. I stayed behind, leaning back in my chair, watching the skyline out my office window. The lights from other towers blinked in silence. Peaceful, for once. I realized I wasn't just patching holes anymore. I was laying foundation. Carter's wreckage was still scattered across the company, but piece by piece, we were cleaning it up. And something stronger was growing underneath, something that might actually last. The next board meeting opened with silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that came from focus. No fake smiles, no backslaps, just nods and quiet respect. I walked in wearing the charcoal gray suit I had tailored last month. Still simple, no flashy brand, but it fit right. Sharp at the shoulders, clean through the waist. Mine, not borrowed, not inherited. Built like everything else I owned now. I took my seat at the head of the table. The CFO gave a quick update, then passed the floor to me. I didn't stall. "Our long-term roadmap is locked in," I said. "Clean investments only. We're cutting anything built on manipulation or debt cycling. Growth without ethics isn't growth. It's risk." I looked around the table. We reward execution. We reward honesty. Not politics, not favors, not loyalty to people who can't deliver. One director leaned in. "What about new acquisitions? We're targeting value-based plays, real assets, teams that can scale, no more hype-driven roll-ups or backroom discounts." Another asked, "And internal leadership?" Elise Harris is leading the retention task force. She's structuring a mentorship pipeline. I want her team to train replacements who are better than them. They nodded. Someone took notes. Someone else whispered to the GC. Nobody interrupted. When I finished, the room was quiet again. Then the applause came. Small, respectful, honest. The kind that didn't feel like charity. I stood, closed my binder, and walked out without looking back. In the hallway, I passed the giant frame portrait of Ellis Stratton himself. Founder, cigar in one hand, American flag behind him, like a campaign ad. I never cared for the image, but just past the frame, I caught my reflection in the polished glass. No slouch in my shoulders, no uncertainty in my eyes, no quiet little brother anywhere in sight. I looked like a man who earned every inch of ground he stood on. Outside, the October air hit sharp and cold, just how I liked it. I climbed into my car, started the engine, and hit speed dial. Elise picked up on the second ring. "You ready?" I asked. "For what?" "Time to talk expansion." She laughed once, then caught the tone in my voice. "Let's go." I hung up and pulled into traffic, steady hands on the wheel, headlights cutting clean through the dark. Phase 3 wasn't about Carter, wasn't about revenge. It was about building something better than what I came from. And this time, it would have my name on it.